There comes a moment in your financial journey when you must decide whether you will remain a victim of economic circumstance or become a victor over financial bondage. What I'm about to reveal isn't taught in schools or passed down in families. These are the brutal, uncompromising laws that separate the financially untouchable from those who remain shackled to paycheck existence. The wealthy aren't operating on better information, they're operating on better principles. While the masses chase financial tactics that change with every season, the untouchable few have aligned themselves with the immutable laws that have governed wealth since time immemorial. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you unstoppable. These 7 laws will demand more discipline than most are willing to give, more patience than most are willing to exercise, and more courage than most are willing to summon. But for those who hear and apply these principles, your financial destiny will never be the same again. The question isn't whether these laws work. They work with the same certainty as gravity. The question is, do you have the spiritual and mental fortitude to submit yourself to their discipline when everyone around you chooses the path of immediate gratification? Are you ready to become untouchable? There are 2 types of people walking this financial earth today. Those who follow rules created by others, and those who have discovered the immutable laws that actually govern money. The difference isn't knowledge, it's alignment. I've watched men and women with advanced degrees struggle financially, while those who couldn't spell economics built empires. Why? Because financial success isn't about information. It's about submission to the principles that govern wealth. What if I told you that everything, every single thing you've been taught about building wealth was actually keeping you financially vulnerable? What if the very financial habits you're proud of are the same ones preventing your breakthrough? Philosophical framing. What we're discussing today isn't just financial advice. It's financial physics. These laws operate whether you believe in them or not, whether you understand them or not, whether you apply them or not. They are working right now in your financial life. I'm not here to give you a strategy that works today and fails tomorrow. I'm here to unveil the timeless principles that have built wealth in every culture, every economic system, and every time period. From the ancient merchants of Babylon to the digital entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley, these laws haven't changed because truth doesn't change. Look at the pages of history. When Solomon built his wealth in ancient Israel, when the Medici family transformed banking in Renaissance Italy, when Rockefeller dominated American industry, they weren't operating on different principles. They were simply aligning themselves with the same financial laws that are available to you right now. But here's the brutal truth that most financial advisors won't tell you. These laws don't care about your feelings. They don't care about your background. They don't care about your excuses. They only respond to one thing: alignment. When you align with them, they work for you. When you violate them, they work against you. Are you ready to discover what these laws are? Are you prepared to have your financial thinking challenged? Because once you hear them, you can never go back to financial ignorance again. Your days of blaming the economy, blaming your boss, blaming your circumstances, they're over. Today is the day you take responsibility for your financial destiny. Law number 1, the velocity principle. The first brutal law that makes you financially untouchable is what I call the velocity principle. And here it is. Money in motion creates opportunity, while stagnant money slowly dies. Most people have been taught that the path to wealth is to hoard, to save, to bury their money like the unfaithful servant who hid his talent in the ground. But the financially untouchable understand that money was never meant to sit still. It was created to circulate, to multiply, to be put to work. Let me tell you something that might shock your financial system. Your savings account is not an asset. It's a liability disguised as security. When inflation is eating 3% of your money's value every year, while your bank gives you 0.5%, you're not preserving wealth, you're losing it with the bank's permission. I studied a man who started with $50,000, the same amount his brother had. The brother put his money in safe investments, earning 3% a year. But this man understood the velocity principle. He kept his money in strategic motion, moving from opportunity to opportunity, never letting it sit idle for long. 10 years later, the safe brother had $67,000, but the man who understood velocity, he had built a $1.2 million portfolio. The difference wasn't luck, it wasn't connections. It was understanding that financial stagnation is the enemy of wealth building. The wealthy don't just save money, they deploy capital. But here's the psychological barrier that keeps most people from applying this law. Fear. Fear of loss. Fear of the unknown. Fear of making a mistake. They're so afraid of losing money that they guarantee they'll never build significant wealth. You must ask yourself today, is my money in motion or is it stagnant? Is it deployed or is it buried? Is it working for me or is it slowly dying against me? The financially untouchable don't just earn money, they make their money earn money. When you understand this velocity principle, you'll never look at your bank account the same way again. You'll stop seeing it as a destination and start seeing it as a launching pad for opportunity. Law 2. The asymmetric risk paradigm. The second brutal financial law that separates the untouchable from the vulnerable is what I call the asymmetric risk paradigm. Listen carefully because this will transform how you view every financial decision for the rest of your life. Here's the law. The wealthy don't avoid risk. They take calculated risks with asymmetric upside. They're not gambling, they're positioning themselves where the potential reward dramatically outweighs the potential loss. Most people have been programmed with linear thinking. They chase 5% returns, 8% returns, maybe 10% if they're feeling adventurous. But the financially untouchable think exponentially. They position themselves for 100% returns, 500% returns, even 1000% returns while limiting their downside. Let me break this down so even a child can understand it. If you invest $10,000 and seek a 10% return, the best outcome is you make $1,000. But if that investment fails, you could lose most or all of your $10,000. That's symmetric risk, where your potential loss is similar to your potential gain. That's a fool's game. The financially untouchable look for scenarios where they might invest that same $10,000 with a potential for a $50,000 return or a $100,000 return. Even if they have to accept a higher probability of failure, the mathematics of asymmetry work in their favor. Warren Buffett didn't become a billionaire by making safe, consistent returns year after year. No, his fortune was built on a handful of asymmetric investments where he risked $1 to potentially make $10, $20, or $50. That's the power of this principle. But here's the exercise I want you to do right now. Look at every financial decision in your life and ask, what's the potential upside compared to the potential downside? If you're risking $100 to make $110, that's not investment. That's wage slavery with extra steps. The financially untouchable understand that wealth isn't built by avoiding risk. It's built by embracing the right kind of risk, the kind where you can lose a little to gain a lot. Are you positioning yourself for asymmetric returns, or are you still trapped in the linear thinking that keeps the masses financially vulnerable? Your answer to that question will determine whether you remain touchable or become untouchable in your financial life. Law 3, the proximity effect. The third brutal financial law that makes you untouchable is the proximity effect. And I want you to write this down if you're taking notes. Your financial ceiling is determined by the 5 financial minds closest to you. This isn't positive thinking. This is financial reality. Your income will inevitably gravitate toward the average income of your 5 closest associates. Your financial habits will mirror theirs. Your financial beliefs will align with theirs. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're human. Financial behavior is contagious. When everyone around you is living paycheck to paycheck, spending emotionally, and avoiding financial education, you will absorb those patterns like a sponge soaking up water. The research doesn't lie. We become the average of the people we surround ourselves with. I've watched brilliant people remain stuck in financial mediocrity for decades because they refuse to change their financial environment. Meanwhile, average minds who positioned themselves in proximity to financial excellence found themselves elevated beyond their natural abilities. Let me be brutally honest with you. Some of you are surrounded by what I call financial cancer. People who infect your financial thinking with limitation, who celebrate your financial setbacks, who discourage your financial aspirations. And you're wondering why you can't break through. The financially untouchable understand the strategic advantage of relationship. They intentionally build connections with those who stretch their financial thinking, who challenge their financial comfort zones, who exemplify the success they desire. But what if you can't change your immediate circle? What if you're surrounded by family and friends who don't share your financial vision? Then you must engineer your environment when you can't change your circle. You must find mentors through books. You must join masterminds, even if they're online. You must listen to podcasts and interviews with those who think at the financial level you aspire to reach. Your mind must be in proximity to financial excellence, even when your body cannot be. Ask yourself today, who are the 5 financial minds closest to you? Are they pulling you up or dragging you down? Are they expanding your financial vision or reinforcing your financial limitations? The financially untouchable aren't just careful about how they invest their money, they're strategic about how they invest their attention. Law 4. The leverage multiplier. The 4th brutal financial law that creates untouchable wealth is the leverage multiplier. Listen to me carefully, because this principle alone has created more millionaires than all the lottery tickets ever sold combined. Here's the law. The financially untouchable understand that human, intellectual, and financial leverage compounds to create exponential results. They've discovered that wealth isn't built through linear effort, it's built through strategic multiplication. Most people are trapped in the time for money paradigm. They trade 1 hour of their life for 1 hour of pay. They are locked in a one-to-one relationship with money. But the untouchable operate on a different mathematical plane. They build systems that produce 110, 100, even 1,000 returns on their time, knowledge, and capital. Let me show you a case study that will revolutionize your financial thinking. There was a woman who worked 60 hours a week as a consultant, making $200,000 a year. Good money, but she was trapped in the time for money cage. Then she discovered the leverage multiplier. She took her expertise and built a digital system that delivered the same value to thousands simultaneously. 1 year later, she was making $600,000, working 20 hours a week. 3 years later, $3.7 million while working less, not more. What changed? Not her knowledge, not her talent. She simply applied leverage to what she already possessed. She escaped the prison of trading time for money. But leverage isn't just about business models. The financially untouchable apply leverage to everything. They leverage other people's time through delegation. They leverage other people's money through strategic financing. They leverage other people's platforms through collaboration. They understand that the path to wealth isn't doing more, it's doing more with leverage. However, I must give you this warning. There is constructive leverage that builds wealth and destructive leverage that destroys it. Consumer debt is destructive leverage. Speculation without education is destructive leverage. Expanding before your foundation is solid is destructive leverage. The financially untouchable have built an ethical framework that allows them to distinguish between leverage that multiplies and leverage that divides. They never confuse the two. So I ask you today, where in your financial life are you still operating 1.1 when you could be operating 100? Where are you manually doing what could be systematized? Where are you personally handling what could be delegated? Your answer reveals how close you are to becoming financially untouchable. Law 5. The inversion principle. The fifth brutal financial law that creates untouchable wealth is the inversion principle, and it challenges everything you've been taught about building financial prosperity. Here's the law in its raw, unfiltered truth. Don't just pursue financial gains, systematically eliminate financial drains. The path to wealth isn't just about making more, it's about losing less. Most people are fixated on the income side of the equation. They're constantly asking, how can I make more money? But the financially untouchable are equally focused on asking, how can I stop the invisible leaks that are draining my wealth? The mathematics of this principle are undeniable. If you earn $100,000 a year, but lose $30,000 to inefficient tax strategies, $20,000 to unnecessary expenses, and $10,000 to high-interest debt, then adding $10,000 of income won't transform your financial position. But eliminating those drains will add $60,000 to your bottom line without working a single extra hour. I'm talking about financial inversion, looking at wealth creation from the opposite direction. It's the difference between trying to fill a bucket faster versus plugging the holes in the bucket you already have. Let me give you a decision framework that will revolutionize your financial life. Take every expense and ask 3 brutal questions. Does this expense directly contribute to wealth building? Does this expense protect existing wealth? Does this expense significantly enhance my productive capacity? If the answer is no to all 3, that expense isn't just a cost, it's actively working against your financial immunity. The compound effect of expense elimination versus income increase is staggering. When you eliminate a $200 monthly expense, you're not just saving $200, you're saving $200 plus what that money could earn if invested. Over 30 years at a modest 8% return, eliminating that single $200 expense creates over $300,000 of wealth. But here's why most people never apply this principle. It requires the painful recognition that many of our spending habits are driven by ego, not necessity. The financially untouchable have conquered their egos. They understand that true wealth isn't about displaying prosperity, it's about building it. So I challenge you today, what financial drains are you tolerating that should be eliminated? What expenses have you justified that can't withstand mathematical scrutiny? What financial leaks have become so normal you don't even see them anymore? Your honesty with these questions will determine whether you remain financially vulnerable or become truly untouchable. Law 6. The contrarian indicator. The 6th brutal financial law that creates untouchable wealth is what I call the contrarian indicator, and it might be the most difficult principle to apply because it demands that you stand alone when everyone else is standing together. Here is the law in its raw, uncompromising form. When financial consensus emerges, the opportunity has usually passed. The masses are usually wrong at exactly the most critical moments. History doesn't just suggest this, history screams it. The greatest wealth creation opportunities have consistently appeared when conventional wisdom said, "Stay away." The greatest wealth destruction has happened when the crowd was shouting, "Get in." Let me take you through the historical evidence that proves this principle. In 1929, shoeshine boys were giving stock tips just before the market crashed. In 1999, taxi drivers were recommending internet stocks before the dot-com bubble burst. In 2007, everyone was flipping houses before real estate collapsed. The pattern is as predictable as the sunrise. But this isn't about being negative. It's about understanding the mechanics of market psychology. The financially untouchable recognize that real opportunity exists in the space between widespread fear and widespread greed. They buy when others are selling in panic, and they sell when others are buying in euphoria. Warren Buffett didn't become a billionaire by following the crowd. He became wealthy by being fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. That's the contrarian indicator at work. However, I must warn you, developing contrarian thinking doesn't mean becoming cynical about everything. It means developing the emotional and intellectual discipline to question prevailing narratives. It means having the courage to ask, what if the majority is wrong, when everyone else is nodding in agreement? Here's the courage equation that few understand. Emotional fortitude precedes financial fortitude. You cannot build untouchable wealth if you need constant validation from the crowd. You cannot create extraordinary results by following ordinary thinking. The financially untouchable have developed their own internal compass. They've trained themselves to recognize when consensus thinking has created mispricing in markets. They've built the courage to act when their analysis contradicts popular opinion. So I ask you today, where are you following the herd in your financial life? Where have you outsourced your thinking to the consensus? Where might you need to stand alone to create extraordinary results? Your answer to these questions will reveal how close you are to becoming truly financially untouchable. Law number 7, the ownership imperative. The seventh and final brutal financial law that creates untouchable wealth is the ownership imperative. This principle cuts through all the financial noise and strikes at the very heart of what creates lasting prosperity. Here's the law in its pure, distilled form. The financially untouchable own assets that work for them while they sleep. They have made the critical transition from earning money to owning the mechanisms that generate money. Most people spend their entire lives trying to earn more through labor. They negotiate for raises, they work overtime, they get advanced degrees. But the financially untouchable understand that labor, even highly paid labor, will never create financial immunity. Only ownership can do that. There is a psychological shift that must take place in your mind. You must stop seeing yourself primarily as a worker and start seeing yourself as an owner. This isn't about quitting your job tomorrow. It's about redirecting your resources from consumption to acquisition, from spending to controlling. The 3 tiers of ownership create true financial immunity. First, you own income-producing assets, investments that pay you for owning them, not working for them. Second, you own systems that generate value beyond your personal effort. Third, you own intellectual property that creates value without consuming your time. Let me be brutally honest with you. If you don't own assets that produce income while you sleep, you will never be financially free. If you don't own systems that can operate without your constant involvement, you will never be financially untouchable. If your income is dependent solely on your labor, you will always be financially vulnerable. But here's the good news. The pathway to ownership is available regardless of your current position. You don't need to be wealthy to begin. You don't need special connections. You don't need a privileged background. You simply need to redirect your financial resources away from depreciation and toward appreciation, away from liabilities and toward assets. Start where you are. Begin with a small investment in an index fund, progress to real estate, advance to business ownership. The scale doesn't matter at first, the direction does. The financially untouchable didn't start untouchable, they became untouchable by consistently applying this ownership principle. So I ask you today, what do you own that makes money while you sleep? What systems have you built that create value beyond your personal effort? What assets are working for you rather than you working for them? Your honest answer reveals how far you've progressed on the journey to becoming financially untouchable. We began this journey by looking at 2 types of people, those who follow financial rules created by others, and those who align with the immutable laws that actually govern money. Now I ask you, which will you choose to be from this day forward? Like that person swimming against the powerful current, many of you have been exhausting yourselves fighting financial principles that cannot be defeated. But today, you've been given the blueprint to build a vessel that can harness those same forces. The choice is now yours. The 7 brutal financial laws we've uncovered don't care about your approval. They care about your alignment. They don't respond to your wishes. They respond to your actions. They don't consider your intentions. They only recognize your implementation. The velocity principle demands that you keep money in strategic motion. The asymmetric risk paradigm calls you to position yourself for exponential returns. The proximity effect challenges you to elevate your financial environment. The leverage multiplier invites you to escape the time for money trap. The inversion principle directs you to eliminate financial drains. The contrarian indicator empowers you to think independently, and the ownership imperative commands you to acquire assets that work while you sleep. These aren't just concepts to understand. They are commands to obey if you seek financial immunity. The wealthy aren't playing a different game. They're playing by different rules. And today, those rules have been revealed to you. So what will you do with what you now know? Will you return to financial mediocrity, or will you begin the journey toward becoming financially untouchable? Will you continue to be governed by financial circumstance, or will you govern financial circumstances through these principles? The information alone changes nothing. It's the application that transforms everything. Take one principle from today and implement it immediately. Then another and another. Build momentum through action, not just knowledge. Because when you choose to be governed by the right laws, you become ungovernable by financial circumstance. When you align with these principles, you become untouchable by economic turbulence. When you submit to these brutal financial truths, you emerge with a financial immunity that nothing and no one can penetrate. The choice is now yours. The path has been illuminated. The laws have been revealed. Will you remain financially vulnerable, or will you become financially untouchable? Your decision begins now.